Welcome to Hope Center Online and our launch of another year. And while we're gathering online, I finally came to the realization that's not a fitting title for these faith messages. I've always said that I teach and I preach from the simple truth. So effective today, this first Sunday of 2025, my messages will hereby be collected under the banner of the simple truth. And speaking of truth, I want to set the record straight right away and explain the true story of the famous wise men who went looking for Jesus, the promised king. And last week, I talked about the mysterious star that appeared over Bethlehem when Jesus was born. Mysterious, that's a great word to use in this case, because that star generated a whole lot of excitement on that occasion, and it continues to be the source of conversation even to this day, especially with all the symbolism it holds for historians and Christians alike. I talked about how the sudden appearance of that star prompted local shepherds to visit the manger scene where the Christ child was born. I also mentioned the three wise men and the fact that, contrary to popular custom, they were not there at Christmas at all. I plan to tell you the truth of the wise men, and I said someday. Well, I realized this week that there's no better time than the present, so kind of while it's still fresh in your mind, here we go. Now first, let me assume that all you know is what you have seen and heard at Christmas. And to that I say, lies, lies, lies. There is not an ounce of truth in the three wise men huddled around the baby Jesus in his manger. Now that's not to say that there's no story. It's just that the story is vastly different and is critically important in history. And I get a little worked up over the Christmas portrayal because it really diminishes the story of Jesus. The story of three wise men is a myth that adds to mistrust of the Bible. The true story magnifies the Bible, and it adds to the credible story of Christ. Lord knows we don't need to feed into the misinformations that's spread by, people who've probably never read nor understood the Bible. So let me tell you the truth, a story verified historically. First, there were not three wise men. There was a whole herd of them. It was a complete entourage from the area formerly known as Babylon. And if you know anything about history, about the Babylonian Empire, you already understand that it was a nation of wise people. Certainly some by birth, but it was also kind of part of the policy of the country to gather the wise. It was the home, of course, of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, still regarded to this day as one of the 8 wonders of the world. And Babylon was noted for its leadership, for its construction ability, and for its capacity to conquer other nations. And when Babylon conquered a new land, they didn't just try to destroy it, they captured it. They captured their people. And one of the unique things that Babylon did after taking over a new territory was to round up all the leaders. And I don't mean the war leaders, I mean the community leaders. They would go out looking, seeking to find the wise ones, the scientists, the mathematicians, the astrologers. In effect, they captured the brightest people and dragged them back to Babylon, where they could teach others, passing on their thirst for knowledge and their search for wisdom. And this is a well-known historical fact, a fact that I really want to emphasize here today, because it is also a fact certified by the Bible. And I underline this to get you to realize the Bible is not a book of myths. It is a true account of history. And it's verified by other historians, and it's verified by history itself. Babylon was a country of wise men, and so it should be no surprise to us that a group of them would have discovered that new star in the sky, the one that shined down on Jesus in the manger. It was something that Babylonian scholars had been looking for ahead of time. It was foretold many years before, and they were on the lookout for its sudden appearance. The scholars searched for the new star because it was expected to mark the birth of a king. So when the star was born, a whole host of wise men began to study and debate the finding with an intense interest. And in the end, they assembled what amounted to a small community to go find the rest of the story. They were not three kings like the song would have you believe. They were not three wise men, as the Christmas myth would have you believe. This, in fact, was a large delegation, a group representing a community of scientific disciplines, and all of their attendants would travel with them. These wise men, you see, they were aristocrats. They were rich men. They had large households with servants, cooks, attendants. No doubt they probably had personal guards as well. So preparing for the trek, well, that took some time. The logistics were many. Such esteemed men did not rough it. They took home with them when they went. They went to make the journey as comfortable as possible. There would be a caravan of camels carrying passengers and their possessions, not to mention their food, water, tents, and utensils, their immediate needs met while traveling. From the time they first identified the mysterious star and then decided to go find out, months may have passed. And then they faced the arduous journey. It was about 400 or 500 miles, and goodness knows how long that took them. But it wasn't quick, I can assure you. Camels loaded down with passengers and possessions are not noted for their speed, and they're certainly not noted for their comfort. So the travel time would have been short, looking for rest spots along the way. The trip would have been well planned with lots of care not to stray too far from water. After all, it was a desert terrain. So we don't know for sure how many made the trek, or exactly when they arrived. But we do know with certainty that it was not three kings, and they did not see Jesus in a manger. We also know that it was sometime before Jesus' second birthday. That's another fact reported in the Bible that was again verified by history. You see, these wise men delivered much more than gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They ignored an order from King Herod and provided time for Joseph to escort his wife Mary and his newborn son to Egypt, escaping a plot by the king to murder this miracle baby. Herod was so fearful of the many prophecies that Jesus was truly the new king of the Jews. He was prepared to do anything, everything, to ensure this baby would never ascend to the throne. And based on information from the wise men, Herod knew that Jesus was under 2 years of age. So he ordered his guards and troops to go about the country, killing all the male babies who were aged 2 years old or under. Herod was desperate to protect his throne, and little did he know Jesus was known as the King of the Jews in title only. His real crown is the King of all kings, with a throne well out of reach of Herod or any other mortal. So forewarned, Joseph led his new family to Egypt, where they stayed for about 2 years and returned only after King Herod had died. Now, all of what I have described is in fact told in Scripture. You won't find any story of 3 kings or 3 wise men standing by the baby Jesus in the manger. It's not there because it didn't happen. But you will find this account in the book of Matthew, in chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. Here is the truth from the Bible. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, and was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law, and he asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" "In Bethlehem, in Judea," they said. And then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. Then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, come back and tell me, so that I can go and worship him too." After this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary, and they bowed down, and they did worship him. Then they opened their treasure chests and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. May God bless the reading of his holy word. Well, there you have it. Now you have the truth, the true story, the written story, not just in Bible, but in history. Now you know, perhaps though, why I get so twisted out of shape with the Hollywood-style story of Christ's birth. Sure, it's a nice story, it's a cute story. Having such noted people recognize Jesus right from birth, having such exalted people offer him such lavish and expensive gifts truly fit for a king. And of course, having such learned people want to see him, and more importantly, they wanted to worship him. Well, this is a story that needs to be told, and it needs to be told in the fullness of truth. Anything less does a huge disservice. It diminishes the true events and the true royal recognition of Jesus, the King of Kings, and Christ, the Son of God. That phony version, well, that just leads more people to question the truth of the Bible. When you take the time to do the research, when you take the time to search for the truth, when you go looking for the truth, you'll find it. You always do. And the truth is always much, much more important in guiding you through life. I understand why many people do not believe the Bible. If you take your lead from myths and children's tales, there's not much substance to leave a mark. But when you actually take the time and read it for yourself, when you actually study the book and come to know what it means and why it is important to your life, if you do that, then maybe you'll understand why it's the greatest selling book of all time, the most quoted text ever, the answer to all of life's questions. Please, don't take anybody's word for it, not even mine. And certainly do not take the word of someone who's never read the book. Take the time to read it yourself. Make your own decision, because this I know, your life depends on it. I thank you once again for joining us today. I hope you'll come back next Sunday, maybe every Sunday, same time, same place, for the simple truth. Meanwhile, please check our website for more and maybe get involved in some of our programs and activities at Hope Center. They're growing more and more every week. You could also join us, of course, right here online at Hopecentre.ca. If you have any questions or any concerns or any debate, send me an email. My address is bill@hopecentre.ca. Until then, may you be blessed here today, and as I always say, and forevermore. Amen.